Hey guys, Gerry here. Welcome back to another edition of the Lunar Orbit podcast. Today is Thursday, the 27th of January 2022. Let's get into it. So here's the topics I was going to cover today. Just going to briefly touch on the Anchor yield reserves, have a quick look at the FanFury fantasy sports platform, explore the new Yield Foundry DeFi offering that's coming out, and a quick update on the Prism launch. So let's start with the Anchor FUD. There's been quite a bit made in social media about the yield reserves being depleted rather rapidly with the Anchor protocol. So it is something definitely to be concerned about. And Dan QR here did this brilliant video. So we'll just play a quick excerpt from that.
It's not looking that good anymore for the yield reserve. A sharp decline. Right now we are sitting around 40 million. The amount of BLUNA is more or less the same, and BETH is going strongly upwards, right? So there are only two reasons that could happen now. Either an extreme crash in price, which we unfortunately also had in the last days, or the earn side just increased drastically, which also happened, and I'll talk about that in a second.
So as Danko just said there, there's been a few reasons for the pullback in the reserves. Obviously, we've had a big pullback in the price across the board, so a lot of people go into stable coins, so they're sort of retreating to safety, which means they're putting more and more UST into the earn side, and they might be selling off their Luna to do so, and actually taking some of the collateral out of the system. So that's one reason. Another reason is quite a lot of recent UST that's been deposited has actually come through the Degen box through Magic Internet Money. So that system has sort of had a lot of turbulence lately, so some of that funding has unwound, which has compounded the problems here. But my take on it is that Anchor is so big now and so integral to Terra that I just think it's too big to fail. So I'm sure Terraform Labs are going to do whatever is necessary to keep it going. Now, in the short term, that's not a great look because it means that it's not sort of self-sufficient and sustainable just yet, but it is still very early days. You need to remember that this protocol is only 10 months old, and it has over $6 billion locked up in it already. So it's been an amazing success, but at the moment it's not sustainable from the yields that it's generating. And in part, that's probably because we haven't had many more B assets spin up inside Anchor. So we've been waiting for B Atom and B Sol to actually come through. That hasn't happened yet. So basically, I really need to incentivize more depositors. So getting more assets into here will do that. I did listen to a recent Terra Spaces with Anchor, and it sounds like they're doing a complete rework with version 2 of Anchor that will make it far easier for new assets to come across into Anchor, and it's also going to go cross-chain. So Anchor is going to be deployed, on Ethereum, on Solana, on other networks where it's much easier for users on those networks to come and deposit their assets. The really big alpha leak is that they're going to basically allow, potentially, as long as it passes governance voting, essentially any asset that is yield bearing. So that means not just proof of stake assets, but LP positions as well. So that could be a complete game changer. You could imagine someone might have a lot of funds locked up on Ethereum, say in Uniswap. They might be a big liquidity provider between Ethereum and USDC or Ethereum and wrapped Bitcoin, something like that. Suddenly they'll be able to deposit that as collateral and then borrow against it in Anchor. So once all that spins up, I can see so much money coming through to Anchor. It's going to be almost like a bit of a black hole. So in the long run, I'm totally confident in the protocol, but it's going to take some time to get to the point where it can really stand on its own 2 feet. So that's my take on it. Kwon tweeted about it as well. I think he's a bit miffed about all the fuss around it, and is being a little bit flippant with this tweet here saying, okay, how much money do you want? I'll throw whatever it takes into this. So I don't think he's overly concerned, and I'm sure that they've got plans in the background to work all of this out because it is so important. So moving right along from the Anchor FUD, next protocol I want to talk about is FanFury. These guys are pretty cool, pretty exciting. I like that it's a new, completely new offering. Basically, these guys are going after the fantasy sports market. So, your fantasy football and basketball and whatnot, which is a massive thing globally. But to be able to do this on Terra and use UST is a really clever way to go about it. And the reason I wanted to bring them up is that they've got essentially a testnet rewards program. So at the moment, everyone's pretty beat up in the market and might not have much funds to deploy, especially on the new protocol. But a way to sort of grind your way back into a decent position is being an early adopter. So there's a good chance for 10,000 people here to actually get involved and start earning some of this FanFury token. So I've applied for this myself. I do play a little bit of fantasy sports from time to time, so definitely interested in giving this a go. These guys used to be called Crypto 11 if you've heard of them before. So check out their Medium post and get involved if you want to. A little bit more on the actual protocol. So they put a lot of thought into this and the tokenomics. They've got some pretty cool things like traditional DeFi stuff like staking the token, but they've gamified it in a way where you can pledge your stake towards your team, and then the team with the most stake ends up getting a little bit more rewards each week or each day. So that's kind of cool. I think they're going to be covering 5 sports to begin with. So I think it's baseball, basketball, American football, soccer, the world game, and I'm not sure what the 5th one is. It escapes me. Might be ice hockey, something like that. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Really clever tokenomics going on. So one of their big selling points versus DraftKings or one of the other offerings that are already out there now that are centralized is that they're going to take less of a fee, and that fee they're really chopping it up and redistributing a lot of it back to the players. So here's their rake fee. 40% of it is burnt, from every competition. So that creates a deflationary token basically. So it sort of helps incentivize people to hold it and to stake it. There's also LPs get a portion of the actual rake fee, and stakers as well. And the idea with rewarding the stakers with some is to help offset any impermanent loss, or at least dampen that. They're also giving 2% to the Angel Protocol for charitable donations, which is great. And then it looks like about 8% goes back into development, which is great. And then the way they split it up here is the top teams, so the teams that actually win, I think this is how this works. Or maybe it's the top teams that have the largest stake, like in that previous graphic, get 20% of the pie, and then everyone else gets 80%. And then they've also sort of evened out the rewards. So I think something like 75% of participants get something back, even if you lose in the actual fantasy game, you get some money back. Where traditionally the more centralized offerings, only 22% of winners get a return, and apparently it's pretty bad in terms of being able to get it gamed and rigged and whatnot. So having it all on the blockchain with smart contract logic protects you from a lot of those problems. So there's a pretty good Twitter Spaces that came out in December that I listened to that got this on my radar. So I'll put that link into the description so you can follow up on that yourself. But well worth getting on your radar. Next up is Yield Foundry, or Foundry DAO. I'm not sure if they've changed their name or not. I think it's Yield Foundry still. So they've basically just sort of gone into a public launch here. So to the best of my knowledge, none of this was available a few days ago, but they've just announced a pretty hefty seed round of 1.5 million. I think that's in this tweet here. They go into it a bit more and the individuals and why. What got on my radar was also the fact that Apollo DAO has actually invested in this. So that's quite interesting that another decentralized protocol on Terra is an investor. But what really got this on my radar originally was this tweet here by CleanCuts, who does some pretty cool DeFi stuff. He was comparing the returns that you get with Magic Internet Money, which was about 160%, and the Degen box strategy, which we've seen has taken a lot of the reserves out of the Anchor protocol. Well, they've worked out a method to get about 600% that's fully on chain with Terra. So that will be super interesting to see. Also, in their blog post here, they go into some of their other offerings. This one in particular, I really wanted to highlight. It's sort of like the idea it's an all-weather hedge strategy, so it doesn't really matter. And in fact, it's probably perfect for right now. And I kind of wish this was available and I got into it a month ago. But they do some pretty interesting stuff here using the Mirror protocol and the collateral and using debt and selling it with leverage to cover your upside and your downside, so you're protected. So in this example, if you deposited $10,000 and the asset goes up 30%, then you end up with a 35% APY. And like, okay, that's okay. That's not a big deal, right? Like, you only get 5% more than if you just held. But what really is amazing is this scenario here. If your $10,000 loses 99% of its value, because of this, you only lose 7%, which is incredible. I've never seen anything like this before. So even this one, right now, you'd still be making money if you put, $10,000 in worth of Luna when it was at $100. So, if this actually works as described, this is a perfect way to hedge or to park some profits, especially in times of turbulence. So super keen to see that come out. It's worth mentioning that these guys are launching on the new Alto launchpad, which Alto itself goes on sale tomorrow. So if you want to get in on that, you might want to look at purchasing some of the Alto token. Not financial advice. I haven't delved into it really at all. I'm kind of a little bit skeptical about how many launch pads we currently have on Terra and how poorly all of the Terra alts have performed. So I'm like, do we really need another launch pad? We've also got this one here, WeFund, which not many people talk about, but it's a similar kind of thing. Haven't looked into that in great detail either, but we've already got Pylon. We've got Star Terra. We're finding protocols that are sometimes going away from actually using launch pads and doing their own protocol, own liquidity, liquidity bootstrap pools, that sort of thing. So do we really need a launch pad? I'm not sure. So anyway, each to their own. Have a look into it if you like. I do think that the FanFury protocol itself looks cool, and I will be definitely participating in their testnet. But the last thing I wanted to briefly mention was that Prism has delayed their launch by 1 week due to market turbulence, which I really don't like, to be honest. I don't think this is a great start or a great look, because it feels a little bit money grabby to me. Like, I understand a lot of people are stretched right now, and a lot of people probably were going to go into the Prism launch with borrowed UST out of Anchor, which they no longer have. But it makes me wonder what happens in a week's time if the market's down another 30% or something. Do they just keep delaying this? I don't think it actually helps the protocol. I'm not sure why you would do it. If you launched in a sort of a bull cycle and everything was up and going great, well, when things really hit the fan and people need liquidity, the first thing they do is they sell off their alts anyway. So it's not going to protect anyone. So I think it's not a great decision, personally. Not trying to be overly critical, but I just think it's a bit of a cop out, really. So anyway, still really bullish on this protocol. Can't wait for it to come out. I'll probably have to yield farm it with my Y Luna. It's probably the only way I'll get exposure at the moment. So anyway, guys, I hope that's been informative. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.